why Nigerians, we have become so edgy now. Maybe because of the food we eat now. We eat so much of Maggi. We have become so impatient that we don't want to listen to each other. We don't want to, provide solutions that will be workable to our country. Mr. Speaker, I sit here, my colleague is saying the cattle and the herdman, values his cows more than the lives he is killing, which is not true. You can't sit down here and just make conclusions. Yes, the herdsman values even the life of the cow more than his own life. That is how God has created him.
No cow, not even 10 billion cows, is up or has enough value like a human being. It's not up to one human life. So when you say God has created them in such a manner that they value their cows more than human beings, I find that very insulting and demeaning.
Nigeria struggles. Cow held in higher regards than human lives. One of the most shocking and heartbreaking challenges the country faces is the disturbing reality that in some parts of Nigeria, cows are treated better than humans. They are treated with more care and respect than human beings. This deeply unfair and unjust situation has sparked outrage, fear, and despair among many citizens, and it highlights a fundamental flaw in the way priorities are set within the nation. In the heart of Nigeria's Senate, lawmakers and political leaders have been debating this very issue. The topic has become a source of heated argument and division, with some insisting that the current situation cannot continue. It centers on the Fulani people, a nomadic ethnic group known for their long-standing tradition of raising cattle. Their way of life, which involves moving their herds across vast distances in search of grazing land, has led to increasing tensions with farmers. These tensions have often turned violent, with many farmers losing their lives, their land, and their livelihoods in the process. The situation has escalated to a point where people feel their lives are in danger, while the safety of the animals seems to be the highest priority. The Fulani people, like many others, have deep cultural and historical ties to their livestock. For them, cattle are not just a source of food or income. They are a symbol of wealth, status, and identity. However, in their pursuit of grazing land for their herds, the Fulani have been accused of causing severe damage to farmland, destroying crops, and even taking violent action against farmers who stand in the way of their cattle. The use of weapons by some Fulani herders during these clashes has made the situation even more dangerous. The rising death toll among farmers, along with widespread destruction of property, has left many people in fear for their lives. Some Nigerians, especially those living in farming communities, argue that the Fulani should be encouraged to settle in one location rather than continue their nomadic lifestyle. The belief is that if the Fulani were to establish permanent settlements, they would be less likely to clash with farmers and both groups could coexist peacefully. However, the Fulani in large numbers are resistant to this idea. Their traditional way of life, which has been passed down through generations, revolves around the freedom to move with their cattle in search of fresh grazing grounds. They see this mobility as essential to their identity, and the thought of giving it up is deeply unpopular among them. This clash of cultures and priorities have reached a boiling point, and now some Nigerians are questioning whether the very future of the country lies in the hands of those who are willing to stand firm on their demands. In the midst of all this chaos, there are voices calling for a radical solution, a separation. They argue that perhaps the only way forward for Nigeria is for its different groups to go their separate ways. If certain regions or ethnic groups can no longer coexist in peace, they believe that creating distinct and separate nations might be the only way to ensure the safety and security of all citizens. For many, this is not just a political debate. It is a matter of life and death. The situation is so dire that the idea of forming a new country where people could live without fear of violence or oppression is becoming more appealing. These people feel that if they were to establish a new country, they could ensure the safety of their families and preserve their way of life free from the threat posed by the ongoing violence linked to the Fulani herders. They are tired of being caught in the middle of a conflict that feel powerless to stop, and they are desperate for a solution that will put an end to the bloodshed and suffering. But even as some push for separation, others believe that the problem can still be solved within the existing framework of Nigeria. They argue that the government must step in and take decisive action to address the violence, ensuring that human lives are prioritized over the interests of cattle. There are calls for a better regulation of the movement of livestock, stricter enforcement of law against violence, and greater support for farmers who have been left vulnerable and displaced. In addition, there are proposals for dialogue and negotiation between the Fulani herders and the farming communities, with the aim of finding a peaceful resolution that benefits all parties. Yet, despite these proposals, many Nigerians remain skeptical. The distrust between groups run deep, and the fear that the violence will continue unabated is ever present. The idea of separation, while difficult and controversial, offers some people a sense of hope and control in a situation that feels increasingly out of their hands. The heart of the issue lies in the way human life is valued compared to the life of cattle. It is a painful irony that in a nation rich in resources and culture, the welfare of humans have been overshadowed by the importance placed on livestock. This tragic reality must change if Nigeria is to have any hope of achieving peace and stability. A solution must be found that ensures people, not animals, are treated with the respect and dignity they deserve. In conclusion, Nigeria is at a crossroads. The path forward is uncertain, but one thing is clear. The country can no longer continue down the path where human lives are treated as secondary to the interests of livestock. Whether through dialogue, reform, or even separation, Nigeria must find a way to put an end to the suffering and restore the value of human life. Only then will the country begin to heal and move towards a future where peace and justice are a reality for all. Thanks for watching.